Vegas on the screen, feeling the flow, so pristine. Boom, as the beats align. Electric dreams, they intertwine.
It's a game day huddle. Your sports hang out, bringing you the scores, then make you shout.
Hey.
All right, stealing my job. What's going on, everybody? We are back at it. It's been a couple of weeks, so maybe we just reshuffle things. But here we are, off and running once again on a Monday. It's the Game Day Huddle. Brett Lawson, Steve Johnson, Jimmy Garino, joined by Anthony Scott of Breaks and Takes. We knew Anthony would be joining us for the past couple of days, but here we are on the other side of WrestleMania weekend, and really just a jam-packed holiday weekend in general. And, of course, we have plenty to discuss on that front and plenty to discuss on things coming up on the slate for this week. We got the NFL Draft, NBA playoffs off and running, Stanley Cup playoffs. Jimmy was in the action last night right at the castle, the fortress at T-Mobile.
Amazing atmosphere, as
Right,
always.
Absolutely. Anthony and myself were at WrestleMania, so obviously a big weekend for Vegas, and really just a big time of year for Vegas, because even for events not taking place within the Valley, of course, the betting aspects, just the general interest all around from different sports fans, and of course sports fans directly related to the hobby. So much to talk about, so much that is relevant across the board in so many different ways. But of course, fellas, I want to start with the NFL Draft, just because, again, doing a weekly show, we're kind of only able to check in so often, and next time we will be on the air, we'll be on the other side of the NFL Draft, and we've been doing the best job we possibly can previewing it, right? Speculating, kind of imagining where, because at the end of the day, that's all it is. It's speculation and imagination, Jimmy. But we're trying to do our best to imagine where these players end up. And obviously, the conversation keeps going back to the quarterbacks. Cam Ward likely to be a lock at number 1 overall. But then so much polarization with Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart. Just thought right off the bat, because we still have a few more days. But as we look ahead, what are you expecting to go down in Green Bay on Thursday?
I think one of the NFL teams will get desperate and move up and take Jackson Dart and Shedeur before they should be taken. I think we've all talked about it over the last couple weeks about these two guys, because obviously number 1's done. I don't think anybody has a question where Cam Ward's going.
Set it in stone.
So the next 2 guys up are Shedeur and Jackson Dart, and this day and age in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you're gonna reach and you're gonna pull these guys out of the sky and hope that one of them pans out. I just hope it's not the Giants.
Well, Jackson Dart isn't even going to go to the day 1 of the draft. So he actually announced that he's now not going to attend. He was on the attendee list and now is not going to attend. That generally means that he has not been getting first-round calls.
Yeah, that
right?
means somebody in his camp is saying, because they don't want those videos of him sitting there, the
waiting.
Will Levises
Yep.
and all those guys just sitting in the crowd.
I mean, I'm not going to lie.
Aaron
I think the Aaron Rodgers theater was pretty good.
Oh, I didn't.
You know what I'm
I
saying?
love that part.
Every time it happens, it's fun when it happens too. I mean, don't get me wrong. You kind of felt for Laramie Tunsil, even though it was his own doing with the gas mask, and even though that wasn't a quarterback. We have seen players slide in real time, and you can't lie. It's not gripping television, because it certainly is.
Yeah, and so when you run into those type of situations, you see guys like that, it kind of gives you a little bit of information. Mm-hmm. I do believe that Jackson Dart will get reached for, but I think it's going to be surprising what happens with him, because, again, I think you're going to have a team, whether it be a team like a Seattle or something like that, that might be the one to move up 2-3 spots in an opportunity where it's not going to be so much draft stock heavy to make the moves and do that. I don't know. I think things for the most part are pretty easy in this draft. Again, it's also... Look, I'm going to go on the record. I'm not a big fan of college football or basketball this year and the talent class that's coming out in general. I'm still out on a couple of these guys that everybody's really high on. Travis Hunter, I know everyone's high on him. I'm going to be honest with you. I think when it's said and done, he's going to be playing one position, and we're going to figure out what that one position is. I don't think he's going to be playing both.
And I think it's going to be corner. I think
I do too.
I think we may see him sprinkled in a receiver, but I think if you be taking a bigger hit, given what the premium you have at the corner position and how important that is to be a cornerstone of your defense, I think if you don't solidify that position, you're going to really reap I guess you could say you're going to reap what you sow. You put him out at cornerback, you're going to see the immediate benefits. Receiver, it may be hit and miss depending on where he goes. I think it's just a safer gamble, right, Jimmy? Because I think pound for pound, you can make the case he is the best prospect in the draft, but you have Tyler Warren, you have Abdul Carter, you have Mason Graham and Will Campbell. It's a talented class outside the quarterbacks, but it's hard not to focus on the quarterbacks, especially when the first guy you focus on, as Steve just said, there is a debate what position he'll be playing.
Yeah, so with Travis Hunter, I don't think there's an issue of is he going to be great? But
right.
if where at is going to be what it is. And if he tries to do too much, this is the NFL. You're playing against men. And you're playing against these guys every single week. And the last thing you want to do is you want to put out your all-pro future Hall of Fame cornerback and throw him in offense and have him run across the middle and get lit up by one of these big-ass linebackers. Good luck.
That's exactly what I see.
I'd rather not do that and just play defense. You be an island. We don't ever have to worry about this. You play that island. We'll go win football
And look
games.
at shutdown corners. We know how hard they are to come by. If you could get one, you keep them there and don't play around with it.
Now, we start looking at this draft, and we start looking at teams that have made moves, have done good things this offseason, right? We could talk. Look, I kind of like what the Seahawks did.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. I think the Seahawks did a nice complementary to their team. I thought they did a really good job. I think Minnesota didn't do a lot, but I thought Minnesota did enough to address the things that they needed. Right?
They did well just by signing Jordan Allison back.
Right.
By getting him, it's like, okay.
Right.
Good.
And so when you have teams that did that, Anthony, your Bears had a very active offseason. Coming into the draft this year, now they're kind of at a spot where they're going to be drafting for depth and drafting for, some players. I actually wouldn't be surprised if you see another tight end come off for Chicago, to be honest with you.
So the question back home seems to be amongst fans is, are we going tackle or are we going for somebody like Ashton Genty, maybe moving up in the draft? Maybe Will Campbell. I kind of like to see that position. But what they're talking about Travis Hunter and cornerbacks, we don't have one. So we've established our line, bringing Tooney as kind of the general from Kansas City.
Yeah, Tooney's
great addition.
He's going
Great
to give
addition.
the guys in line to what they need. He controls the locker room in Kansas.
Absolutely,
Everybody talks about Patrick Mahomes. He was the actual general of that field house. Now it's just a question of, are we satisfied with that, and are we going to go after defense? That's really where I'm looking at it. The Bears, getting that cornerback or that strong safety position that we didn't have last season.
And in a way, it's almost, I won't say it's more important because obviously number one overall pick, you bring in the quarterback who you hope is going to be your franchise guy. But this pick could be so complementary to what happened last year, Anthony. It's almost like this is the aftermath of last year. It's almost like it's a two-pronged type of scenario to where last year you lay the foundation with Caleb Williams and that offense. This year you bring in Ben Johnson, someone who could actually spearhead that offense from the sideline, and hopefully by bringing in Thuney and potentially an offensive lineman, you're now protecting the asset you brought in last year, Jimmy. And we've seen that. We've seen teams address what they've done the year before the following year, and that's when you start to see it come to fruition because they complement, right? You have a productive offseason in the free agency aspect, bringing in an older guard, but a veteran guard, one of the best in the AFC the past decade at this point, and you shore up that offensive line around them. That was the main Achilles heel last year. So automatically Chicago's moving in the right direction. If they nail this pick, you bring in Will Campbell out of LSU. Maybe out of random, you bring in like a Tyler Warner and Ashton Genty just to complement the playmaking aspect. Then next thing you know, it seems like within 5 minutes, Chicago has completely changed their identity. It may sound far-fetched, but you look at some of the teams in recent memory, they've done this.
Yeah, and I don't think we ever have worried about Chicago's defense. We got a little technical difficulties on the.
Let's talk about Aaron the producer
stumbling.
doing Aaron the producer things, right? Totally fine. And then I'm over here being an absolute idiot trying to put
Steve's simultaneous being a co-host.
Look,
and an
I'm way
audio
better at
tech
talking
and
than
an
I am
audio
fixing
tech.
stuff. If you guys understand anything about me, let's just clear the air very quickly, right? I'm the guy that I do take my car to get its oil changed somewhere, so
Yes.
I have someone to blame,
Yes.
right? So I don't want to take any responsibility. So in this moment, what you guys just saw, just forget about it.
And I love
okay?
that you admit that because it makes me feel better because I'm the same exact way. But these are the type of conversations that, again, you're naturally going to have. And once Anthony looks like he should.
You know you guys planned this.
Yeah.
he didn't unmute you.
Mess
Yet.
with
All
the
right, I think you're
Chicago
unmuted
guy.
now.
Oh, now I'm unmuted.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're good. Your mic's open. But Anthony, you ultimately do bring up a good point. And much like what Jimmy just said, it's all about complimenting what you did the year before. What do you think could be potentially for Chicago maybe in store for the day 2 aspect? Because a lot of times that's what makes or break your team in the draft. Do you see maybe them going after a
100%.
high-profile day 1 guy like a Gene or a Tyler Warren, and then maybe day 2 going after a big steal? Because I know Chicago fans, you guys have had some mixed opinions about what the front office has done in recent years.
You know,
There we go.
as
We're
Steve
audible.
mentioned, the Bears going after a tight end.
Yeah.
We have a couple guys that get the hands on the ball, but I don't think we have a blocking tight end, and I think that's a big thing if they're going to get somebody like Genty. Is they need somebody to help him create those holes, and bring an extra man on that side of the line, kind of when they start running the east to west.
Yeah.
Because we all know Genty's that style, like
North-South.
he's put himself up there in the names of guys like Marcus Allen and Emmitt Smith with his numbers in college, knocking on the doors of Barry Sanders, right? So, like, the guy's got that mobility. He's not going to be a north and south. He's going to find the hole that's open, and he's going to take it.
And then has the power to finish the job once he does get down. That's what
absolutely.
makes him so
I
special.
just think with this draft, though,
Yeah.
it's so loaded with running back.
Oh, my
it's
God.
absolutely like if
The
those-
day 2 guys are going to be insane.
Yeah.
So the top 2 guys with Genty and Hampton, we're locked in. Those are going to be the top 2 guys that get taken.
Ollie Gordon.
And you could get a second day guy that's going to come on your team and absolutely kill us.
I'm telling you right now,
Yeah,
whoever
love,
gets
love,
whoever
yeah.
ends up with Scatabo, I'm
Scatabo,
telling
you've
you
been
now,
hyped on him forever.
Whoever gets Scatabo and he is not a first rounder is getting the best value in the draft, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because there are intangibles that come with players that we've talked about. You mentioned Laramie Tunsil. This is a really good example. Here's the other side of it, right? Huge community guy. All about the team. Willed that team in the bowl game on his shoulders.
Backpacked him.
Right?
Yep.
Picked him up, did that. When you have guys that do that, and I'm going to tell you, and this is going to be, look, this is probably not a fair comparison, but when you start looking at how he played the game in college and how McCaffrey played in college,
very similar.
right? That game is very, very similar,
Swiss Army
except
knife.
he's a little more physical.
He's
So-
more like a Mike Allstott.
Yeah. No. But what I'm saying is he's that guy that, like, he can catch the ball.
Yeah.
He can get upfield. He can also run good routes and beat people. So those are things those intangibles are huge.
Yeah.
Whatever team ends up with him, and trust me, look, we wanted Genty as a Chargers fan, right? We were talking about it. Then we signed Najee Harris, and that went out the door. But if he's there day 2 and the Chargers are on the clock and Scatabo's sitting there, I promise you, I'm the one guy that's screaming at the TV, draft Scatabo, because he will be a difference maker for whatever team he ends up on.
And I love that you bring up difference maker because he's a modern day back. We think of him because of the power, the physicality, how hard he is to tackle. Same with Genty as this cloud of dust guys. But just like Anthony was saying, he has the athleticism to go east and west. So does Scatabo. Scatabo can break away. Scatabo can find separation running routes. Every single running back, from Love to Ollie Gordon to Hampton, they represent the modern day back, and they can do everything. And that brings me to where I want to talk about now, because you guys could all chime in on this, the card markets. Right now, Jimmy, sitting here, and obviously we could ask you this question a week from now, your answer may be a little bit different. Is there a certain position outside a quarterback that you think the market is gearing up for? Is it running back because of the volume? Could it be maybe defensive line because you have a potential generational player like Abdul Carter? Is there a certain position outside a quarterback right now that you think people are going to start flocking to in the hobby?
I think the wide receiver position is the only other position that in the hobby really matters and,
Gotcha.
and people actually will pay a premium for.
Yeah.
With the running back position, it's one of those positions where it's like if they're good, they're only good for a very short time. So if you're buying their sports cards, you have to buy that and sell it very quickly. Because if you're buying a Christian McCaffrey, you could go out and get Christian McCaffrey for literally nothing right now. And he was, the best running back in the game
Just
for
a
the
year.
last 5
Just a
years?
year ago, too.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like you could have got him for nothing last week. It's continuing to be that way with the running back position. Whoa!
Well,
With the running
we
back
are live,
position.
guys, so you know. This is live work being done by
Yes.
Aaron, the producer. Let's go ahead and give Aaron, producer, a round of applause.
There you go.
Hey.
He
That's
thinks
Spotify-
he's figured out the issue here.
Spotify, we welcome you.
We
Before
We're
Yeah,
doing
right.
this.
We're wide awake now. We didn't even need the coffee.
Yeah,
Scared me so much where
taking
I
the moment there.
almost
Yeah.
died.
Yeah, taking the moment there is perfect. So we are now going to be scaled onto Spotify. You'll be
Yeah.
able to catch all the podcasts on Spotify. Thank you, Aaron, the producer, for getting that done. It's
a big deal.
And the technical difficulties, those happen from time to time. This is a live program, kids.
Yeah, that's what's fun
This is
about it.
live. We're not joking. And we also don't have the 27 tech crew that most,
Yes.
like big podcasts will have.
Aaron's
So
doing it all by
He
himself.
is.
He's a whole crew, a one-man staff, and he's pretty much just lone wolfing it here. But no, absolutely. And again, you could follow us, like, subscribe on all of our platforms, digital, social media, YouTube, whatever it may be. Follow the live show. You can follow the archive show on all those platforms through the video and now through the Spotify if you want to catch the audio side of things. And again, those comments are open. What?
Video.
Spotify video too. That's the beauty of it.
they
Video
get to see your beautiful face and hear
Absolutely.
that exchange of
Yes.
electronic parts.
Well, I
get
just
to
saw
see
the
the
zoom
mug.
in of my face. I'm like, oh my god, I'm as fat as I've ever been.
There you go.
I gotta
nobody
lose some
told
weight.
me
Camera
I'd be
angles.
visually seen in this.
You thought this was just
This is
radio,
an audio- just an
radio
audio,
only
yeah.
face.
No, but absolutely though, and that's what's so fun because again, on all of our video platforms, you could jump in the comments. The phone rooms will be open. We have that live sports talk radio element as well, where you could call in for those who may not be as familiar with Go Live Vegas and how we do things. So whether it be live, whether it be archived, you could follow us. You could join into the festivities however you want. But really quick, guys, as we continue to talk draft, we're talking about the premiums on positions such as running back. Jake Parnell, hey, good morning to you, buddy.
What up, Jake?
And we talk about running back. We talk about receiver, defensive position. But I asked you, because Steve, I'll even throw it to you. You mentioned Scadaboo. Who is a potential name here, whether it be a big day one name or maybe a day two name, that you think within the next couple of weeks could surge on the market?
Well, I think the easiest one is Jackson Dart. That's just the easiest one. You got to look in these drafts, and I'll point this out, right? What, Michael Penix went 14th,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe 16th? Yeah.
16th,
yeah.
something like that, right? He went later in the draft. And now this
It's
offseason,
going to be a big one.
he's scaling.
I bet.
And you're seeing it slight scaling, right? Bo Nix, because he started longer, is scaled, ahead of him. But Penix, look, when we started the summer, the conversations coming out of the NFL season this year and talking about coming into the summer and
Yeah, the
what to
offseason.
expect, right? When we started talking about that, we were talking about how go and buy Michael Penix now. Like,
Yeah.
now he's a buy, now he's a buy. Jimmy was all about J.J. McCarthy.
He was.
Right? Talking
He was
about J.J.
adamant.
McCarthy.
Yeah.
And now what you're seeing with these guys that went later, right? These are guys that ended up having like huge hobby, like volume and investment.
Yeah.
So now it's like, look, Anthony, you're out doing shows all the time. You're out seeing these things. You're constantly out there. And you're seeing the Michael Penixes be asked for, and people are looking for those big Michael Penix cards. 6 months ago, nobody was asking anything on those guys, right?
No, I had a gold 6 months ago out of the Panini packs. Gold auto. Went for like $900. Nobody wanted it.
Yeah, and you're gonna come into, he throws his first preseason touchdown this year, and that card's gonna go for $2,000, $2,500. Like, these are things that if you just look and see, I think that is really key. Jake's asking, what team with a potential great draft could be a big riser next season?
Good question.
I mean, there's two in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't know if this one will get it right, but they've got the biggest room for, possibilities. That's the Jacksonville Jaguars, right?
You can only go up.
If they can stand Lawrence up for more than 3 seconds, I think he'll be the quarterback that we
Because Brian
expect him to
Robinson's
be.
the dog, man. He's probably
Right.
top 5 right now, wide receivers in the
Yeah.
league.
Or
So
Brian
he's got
Thomas.
Yeah,
Thomas.
gotcha, gotcha.
He's
Yeah.
got guys.
He's an
Yeah.
absolute
Yeah, he was
stud.
number 4, I think, overall rookie votes.
Yeah. If
Yeah.
it weren't
Last
from
year.
if it weren't
Yeah.
from the league neighbors, you would have gotten that much more pop.
Yeah, and he's got, look, there's some guys, there's some people in place. The problem is they were so bad on the offensive line.
Yeah.
Right? And defensively, they were a sieve up the middle. Up
Yeah,
the
they
middle,
got
they were a
gashed.
sieve,
They got
right?
gashed.
So if they can address some of that stuff, you could see that team moving really big. I actually think the team that you probably should watch in the draft and see what they do is the 49ers. The Niners is the team that I'm most interested about how they draft this year. And that's going to actually, which is crazy to me, to think that's how I'm going to base how I see this front office. And they went to a Super Bowl, right? And this is how I'm going to see this front office. And the reason I'm going to see this front office this way because they jet-setted everybody. They didn't sign for needs. They didn't do any of that they needed to do.
Yeah, they had a terrible offseason. the
But they
Niners.
have assets now.
Yes. Well, this is going to be whether he keeps his job or he's gone after this year.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see
make or
what
break
John
time.
Lynch
Yeah,
can
this
do
is it.
here
Yeah.
because this is the thing. And look,
now they're not stacked.
we
Now you have to
thought he
reload.
was a great GM, and now we're sitting here right now questioning if his job is on the line. So when you look at it from that standpoint, the 49ers are by far the most interesting
And that's
team.
why I love the fact that Washington, who has Adam Pierce, who was once in San Francisco, you see
Yes.
what they do. They've had one hell of an offseason. We talk about Larry Tunsil. They bring him in. The one glaring area of weakness on that offense was the offensive line. We talked about how they don't necessarily have great weapons, but they're not terrible either. I mean, Terry McLaurin is still an absolute stud. And a lot of the guys who were I guess you could say overlooked last year, they made a name for themselves. And they had a great offseason, and now there's a new regime. So we're still so used to watching them being very, hit and miss in the draft. But based off of what they did last year, bringing in a generational guy, and this offseason, shoring up that offensive line to protect them, this could be like the perfect opportunity to me, at least in my eyes, for Washington to really kind of do a victory lap in the draft. And if they don't, Jimmy, I think it could be one of the biggest misses because with what they did last year, they overachieved. We talked about it on this very show. So now after you have a year where you overachieve, what's the next thing you expect? Them to come back down to earth, right? Regress to the mean. What's the best way to avoid that? You build on top of what you have in the draft.
Yeah, they have to re-up.
Yeah.
Because they have the biggest fall to, in my opinion, I think the Washington Redskins.
Do you think they come crashing down?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they come way back down to earth. I think once now that these defense coordinators have another year to prepare for them,
The extra tape. Yep.
they're gonna come back down to earth. I think that division's gonna be a little bit better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants were abysmal. The Cowboys were terrible. It was the Eagles and Commanders. That was it. I think the Giants will be getting better. I think the Cowboys hopefully will be getting better because football's always better when the Cowboys are good.
It is.
Guys, and listen,
Love them or hate them.
Yeah.
as much as we don't want to do this because we've done it with Mahomes and them for years, that Eagles team got better in this offseason.
yes, they did.
absolutely. And
They just signed Jurgens to a 4-year extension
Yeah.
today. Like they're making the moves that a real good franchise makes
Yeah.
to stay relevant and continue to be that footprint. And look, the Saquon thing, I get it. We all look at it. Well, the Eagles got lucky. They got lucky that Saquon decided not to try to do a hometown deal. No, they didn't get lucky. They played chess better than anybody else in the game right now. They're stacked defensively. They're going to continue to stack defensively.
Do you remember where they brought in A.J. Brown? It was draft day. On
It
a
was.
draft day trade. And we talk about how that defense is essentially the Georgia Bulldogs carried over to the NFL. Well, that's because they have an outstanding scouting department, just like the Rams do. We talked about
He
it.
brought the A.J. Brown thing. Are you okay? He
No,
brought that up, and-
I'm just sitting here wondering why the hobby hasn't reacted to Jalen Hurts in the way that I feel that it should have.
He doesn't get the love that he should.
He doesn't.
The guy is an absolute
They don't
stud.
ask for his cards at shows. I'm
No,
like, the guy
never.
literally just won a Super Bowl
let's
against
talk about it.
Mahomes.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about that. What do you think that is? Because not only did he win a Super Bowl against Mahomes, he balled out. He played as perfect as a game as you could ask him to play. Deep passes down the field with Devontae Smith accurate, using his legs. You couldn't get him down on the ground. Like, what do you think the reason is for him to have such a stagnant market?
He plays for the Eagles.
Yeah. So you think it's just overvalued? You think the fact that he's on such a good team, it diminishes how people receive him?
No, I just don't think the fan base is the same as it is for like Kansas City.
Not as appreciative?
Like Eagles fans really like the Eagles, right? I just don't think they get the love by other fans that don't.
Well, I mean, there's definitely a thing about the Philly against Philadelphia. And real quick, Michael Lugo, by the way, thanks for the shout out. He said he purchased a 151 pack and he hit a Venusaur EX.
Yeah,
So
in fact,
well
maybe
done.
I'll send it to Aaron by the end of the show.
Yeah.
We can maybe jump back on to that or jump back to that comment. We'll throw it up. He sent me a picture of it. He was hyped.
Yeah,
So he
that's
said,
awesome.
Give your guys at Game Day a shout out.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's great. But
I don't know about what a Pokemon card is.
when
but
you start talking about the Eagles though and like where they are in the hobby space, Anthony's 100% correct. They are not a heavily collected franchise. If you need to go back and look at their greats and look at what the values of their card market is
Reggie
for
White.
their greats,
Randall
Reggie
Cunningham.
White rookies are so grossly undervalued.
Really?
It's ridiculous. Like I don't even have to look it up right now, and I'll bet you that you can buy a PSA 10 Reggie White rookie for under $400.
So and that's
You have to be able
and
to.
that's a good point. And we'll get to the comment in a second, Jake, because I like how he brings up that even though Philadelphia, that's like a top 5 or 6 sports market in terms of market size in the sports world, and he just mentioned how the Eagles fans love them obsessively. But if you don't have enough people outside your fan base loving you obsessively, you may not move that needle.
No, and that's true. And,
Yeah.
and Jake brings up a really good point, asking if the Eagles could trade up for a guy like Abdul Carter.
God forbid, indeed.
You know,
Oh my God!
and
if
then
he could do it,
you know,
Oh,
and then
I'll
seeing.
murder
But I'm going to
somebody.
tell you right now, that's not even possible. It's not possible because there are 7 or 8 other teams that have way more things available to move and trade. I'll even tell you right now, if someone was to trade up for Abdul Carter, it'd be the Raiders.
Yeah.
The Raiders would be the team to
It
make
would
that
have
They
to
got a
move.
couple picks.
And it would
'Cause they've
have to
got
be a team
picks.
with capital.
They've
with
got
volume. Yep.
some stuff they can move. They could even do future picks. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're a GM, and it comes across the board, and the Eagles are offering you a future first, and the Raiders are offering you a future first,
You're
you
going.
can't do the Raiders deal fast enough.
Yeah.
Correct.
Because
you know they're drafting at the bottom of the league. every
because
year.
no matter what, my expectation is they won't be drafting 15th and back.
And you can't let the rich and like that is a thing. Don't kid yourself. You can't let the rich get richer around you.
And a bad Eagles season this year. Let's say they have a bad season, don't even make the playoffs. They still probably go 500.
yeah,
Right.
That's
So to me,
There's zero
it's-
chance that team does not make the playoffs. though.
Right.
But remember
that team's making the playoffs. So
2 years ago, they had like the worst meltdown in like single season history, at least in the back end of the season, and they were still barely out of it just because they had won so many games before. They bring in Saquon and they just go gangbusters. So I'm completely with you. Gary Young says T. Young bringing the words, or T. Scott bringing the words of wisdom. What's that? Southside pride again? Yeah, we got Anthony Scott from the South Side himself. And I'm sure we'll be talking.
He knows
White
a little
Sox at some
something
point.
about the Eagles because Donovan McNabb actually went to our high school before we
Oh,
went
really?
there. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Small world. I love it. though.
alumni with Don.
Where did he go? High school?
Mount Carmel in Chicago.
Yep.
Chicago.
And then
And then Syracuse after that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But no, that's what's so fun about the draft because it's really a before and after type of approach. But that aftermath just keeps continuing. So all the conversations that we've been having the past couple of weeks that we're having right now, that all goes null and void. However, there are certain tidbits of it we will look back and remember because we'll hang our hat, we'll pinpoint that exact moment. That's where it either went very wrong or that's where it went very good, depending on who the team is. Really quick before we get out here, I just have one more question. I'll start with you, Anthony. What do you think could be we don't even have to make it day one. We can make it the whole weekend on draft day. What do you think will be the biggest surprise, biggest shock, biggest twist, biggest turn, biggest letdown? What do you think will be the main thing that, even if it's just in your circle, in the Chicago circle, that people will be talking about as the dust settles?
You know, proven with management now and the GM that we have, you know, the Bears surprised everybody to go up in the last draft. They did it with Fields too.
Yep.
I am not expecting them to do anything less this draft.
Really?
I'm seriously thinking they're going to go all
They'll be
in,
aggressive.
and they're going to get what they need. I'd like to see Will Campbell and then Scappo in the second round, and that would be the perfect.
Could you imagine that?
Could you imagine the offense?
That's his two of a sure, and that's his two.
We wouldn't need a defense at that point.
Just outscore everyone.
But
and
nobody's
that's the
ever
surefire thing.
Has anybody ever
be.
said the Bears' defense is terrible? I think over the last
No, it's just a few
over the last
holes that
30
we're
years,
missing.
nobody has ever came out and said one thing about the Bears is their defense is bad.
It's like Pittsburgh.
No, they're always solid. They're maybe not be the best defense in the league, but they're always going to be in the top
Like I said,
15
free
to 10.
safety
They're-
position and
Yeah.
a cornerback.
You're missing a little piece here, a little piece there,
Yeah.
but it's never the defense. It's always offense with,
Because it's
with
always
the Chicago
it's
Bears.
always a part of their identity, and their culture, which is
Yes.
why the Ben Johnson hire is so crucial, as he will tell you, because all they have ever hired is the old guard defensive mentality-based coaches. In certain aspects, that works. For the Bears, they needed an offensive guy, and now they have him.
Well, and I hate to ruin this for you, Anthony, but I'm going to tell you right now, Will Campbell is not going to be wearing a Bears uniform this year. And I'll put money on it. This is how confident I am.
Because you think he'll go higher?
Because he's going to go number 4 to the
That's what I'm-
Patriots.
yeah. He's a great player.
He is going to go number 4 to the Patriots because the Patriots, what we thought they were going to draft for, they signed in free agency. So they need offensive line help to get that kid standing upright
He's
so
the
he can
best
deliver
one.
dimes. Because if he has time,
He's hands down the best.
he is
lineman
very
in the draft.
accurate.
outstanding. Yeah.
And you have that guy to come in and plug and play. Look, we saw what happened with the Chargers last year in their addition of offensive line.
Joe Alt.
Alt.
Right?
Yeah.
To pair with
This is
Rashawn
no
Slater.
different.
Yeah.
This is absolutely no different with what the Patriots just did. This is literally the exact same thing, except you're not. And the reason I say this is because you guys aren't trading up to the number 1 pick. You're not trading up to the number 2 pick at this point because Cleveland has a big issue. They got to decide whether they want Carter or if they want Hunter, right? And then the Giants are taking whoever's left.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Giants
those 3 teams are not moving out of their positions
Yeah.
at this point unless somehow the Giants, which I doubt because that front office is a dumpster fire, would be able to actually pull the wool over someone's eyes to say, hey, Cleveland, let us trade up a spot with you and let us make the decision, right? If they could pull that off, sure, that might be the move you see, but you're not going to see the Bears moving up there.
He's too high in town.
What would they
prospect.
give?
Yeah.
What would they give? And you'd have to get the Patriots out of that pick. What would you have to give up to get the Patriots out of that pick?
Ben Johnson.
Odunze
Grown coach.
Odunze and like 6 picks?
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
6
You know what I'm
picks.
saying?
6 for an offensive tackle. My goodness. But I get what you're saying because he is that good and he's not going to be around long enough for them to get him without making a major move.
What are the Bears picking at 8?
They are
But-
Bears
No, they were
are
9, I thought.
9?
10th overall.
So you'd have to make something. You'd have to be very aggressive. But to be fair, as Anthony just said, he expects them to do just that. But Jimmy, you were saying Will Campbell. He's it's a sure thing. But we thought Joe Alt was all that he was cracked up to be. Turns out he was, at least as a rookie. I think Campbell's the same type of player, and I think Campbell actually this past year would have been even more highly touted had he coming out a year before. Because again, you have the Malik Neighbors, you have the Jaden Daniels, you have the Brian Thomases. That offensive unit was so much more stacked in 2023 than it was this past year. But again, even someone like a Mason Graham out of Michigan, someone like a Tyler Warren, there are some talented players here that really match the modern day version of their position to a T. So that's really, let's see, we get one more before we go to break from Jake here. And again, we appreciate you, all you following, all you watching, all you listening. Jump in on the comments. Jake asked, what's stopping the Patriots from getting another weapon like Ginty? How much would that speed up the timeline of that rebuild?
I have an answer to this one.
Fire away.
This one's easy for me.
Fire away.
It's the future cost of that position. And right now they're in a good place with running backs that they don't need. They have guys that can play the NFL position at running back, and they can intermove those pieces. So the Patriots aren't worried about it. They might do, 3rd, 4th round,
get one
do
late.
some depth guy.
They could get one
but
late. Yeah.
they don't need to go out and make a big splash on a big name guy like that when they have enough pieces already there. They need to do things to be better in their division. Remember that they play 2 games a year versus the Bills, 2 games a year versus the Dolphins, and then they get 2 bye weeks extra when they play the Jets. But they get to play some of the teams that, look, the Dolphins, for as bad as they are, they give you a game. That is the problem.
Well, and early in the season, in the fall, September, whenever they play them, they always struggle with Miami. Whenever they have to go down the road, they struggle with the Heat.
So
That's
when
a known thing for
when
the
you
Patriots.
think of these things, you have to look at how the team scopes and builds. So yeah, a running back isn't going to be something that's going to move the needle for the Patriots right now.
Plus, at this point, with your quarterback that you have that you think could
Yeah.
be a stud, you have to establish the insurance policy around him. Only way to do that is to shore up the offensive line help. Really quick, though, we'll round it out. Jimmy, I'll go ahead and give the mic to you as we head a break. What do you think we're going to be talking about once the dust settles come Monday? Or, just even by the time we get to day 3 of the draft?
I think what we're going to be talking about is those second-tier quarterbacks, where they ended up and what position, what team, who took – like even the Louisville kid, he's high on the draft
Slout?
board. Yeah, he's
Slout.
high, and nobody's even talking about the kid. He's higher than Will Howard. He's higher than Quinn Ewers. He's higher than Dylan Gabriel, but nobody's talking about this kid.
You have Kyle McCord. There's some guys who, like, if you weren't so caught up with the Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, discussion, right? If you weren't so caught up in that discourse, we'd probably give these guys a little bit more credence. But again, so much of it is going to come back to where Shedeur Sanders goes.
So that's where I feel
everywhere in
that
between.
we're going to talk about it at the draft when it's all said and done.
Right.
Is where these second-tier guys land and what positions that they're going to be going into day one. If they're going to be able to start on that team right away or if they're going to have to build into something to be there. So it'll be interesting to see where the quarterbacks slide because for me, especially for the card market, the quarterback position is the only one that we should be worrying about.
And my question is going back. It's a simple one, but it's really more about the placement of Shedeur Sanders. If we expect Cam Ward to go early, if we expect Jackson Dart to go late, right? Shedeur Sanders' stock has slid a little bit, but at the same time, there have been reports that the Giants are all in. There are all these things surfacing, but the Giants could potentially get him somewhere else. I know you don't want him, Jimmy, but at the same time, if it were to happen, boy, would it give us a lot to talk about.
We talk.
And honestly, I think there's a good chance that Jameis Winston, and when it's all said and done, that was those 2 quarterbacks they brought in, there's only one of them remaining on the other side of camp. So I think that there's an angle here that he could wind up in a Giants
uniform. Knowing how big of a dumpster fire our front office has been the last 2 years for the Giants, they are 100% going to draft Shedeur Sanders because they just spent money on Russell Wilson. They just spent money on Jameis Winston.
Yep.
Why not just waste more money and draft a quarterback
Well,
that's
to
not
me,
going to play
that's
for 2 years?
That's a poker table play, right? You see the guy play certain cards really strong, and then you know when he's playing those strong hands. And
His
what
talent.
you're talking about
What's
is
his
that.
talent? Yeah.
I'll tell you, though, I don't think they screw this up simply because everybody is telling them whatever doesn't get taken by Cleveland is what you take.
Because those are probably the 2 best players in the draft.
So
Carter
I think that's
Hunter.
probably where this ends up.
Right.
But what I think is the unique conversation we should be talking about that most people aren't, what are the Saints going to do? See, because that front office is so quiet all the time. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's been a trade announced, and the Saints are moving up 3 spots, and then all of a sudden they draft a guy that's going in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you watch teams like that use their draft abilities strong and like what it is. And look, right now they're drafting at 8. You tell me, okay, if we think that Warren is going to go to the Jaguars, tell me that the Jaguars wouldn't take the 8th pick and a 2nd rounder and give you the number 5 position. No, you're going up to take Shedeur Sanders in front of the Raiders.
So
because if Shedeur falls past there, Shedeur's a Raider.
He's gone.
That's done. If the Raiders are on the clock and Shedeur Sanders is sitting there,
he'll be a Raider.
He'll be a Raider, and there's 3 reasons for it. And the 3 reasons have to be 2 owners that are not afraid to go out and make money.
Yep.
And he brings a ton of money to your franchise.
A lot of
jerseys.
A lot of clicks, a lot of jerseys, a lot of views, a lot of trading cards.
And he is going to be a talk piece in one of the biggest markets to be a talk piece in, Las Vegas. So I'm telling you now, that's a marriage made to happen.
Player.
Right. Right.
100%.
And if they're not happy with Pete Carroll,
you've had that theory for a
we're
while.
We're calling up Dion.
Steve Johnson, he's been on
I'm
that
telling
one
you,
since
like
February.
Like that's a very real thing. So I could actually see the Saints trade up, them move down, the Saints take Shedeur. Now that puts the Raiders in the position. They probably have to take Janey, right? But they'll consider Jackson Dart because they don't want to miss. Because after all, they're the guy that like, hey, I'll take anybody to the prom as long as I go with a date, right? So from that standpoint, I think that's like the more unique things you're looking at are teams like that don't operate in the media. What they do.
Who are more silent.
The Patriots do not operate in the media.
Yeah.
The Saints do not operate in the media.
There's some teams that just are shrouded, and we've seen the Saints. They brought in Marcus Lattimore and Alvin Kamara the same year.
Right.
They've actually really hit well on the draft in past drafts, really in the recent past that we sometimes overlook.
And what do the Jets do? Because if the Raiders take Janey and Jackson Dart's sitting there, then the Jets are signing Jackson Dart.
I think this draft in particular, as we go to break here, and we really appreciate the input from everyone watching right now. And again, if you're following us, like, subscribe, you can do the same. Jump in on the comments. Phone lines will be open as we turn the page to talk everything else. But as we wrap up on the draft, again, this could all be, not could be, it will be at some point. At least some of the stuff we're talking about here will all be 86. It'll be null and void on the other side of the draft. But that's what's so fun, because where we're wrong, we're also going to find ourselves being right in some areas, and some teams, it's going to be the exact same thing. Even if we're still far off from the fall, far off from September, you could tell what teams hit and what teams didn't, where they needed to in the draft. And that's because it always goes back to talent versus need, or basically it's need versus availability, right? You don't draft what you need. You don't draft positions, you draft players. And that remains to be true time and time again. And that's why Cleveland may not need another defensive end because you have Myles Garrett. But if you have Abdul Carter there, you bring him in. Those are the type of scenarios that often always ring true in the draft, and I'm curious to see if that'll be the case once again, because, again, you very much draft for talent rather than the positions that your roster needs at that given time. So we're going to take a quick break. We could talk draft all day. It's as fun as anything to talk about. the NFL offseason is eventful as any other sport during its season, but of course, we have plenty of festivities to dive into. Playoffs are upon us in the NBA. Stanley Cup playoffs are here as well, and of course, baseball, we've been keeping our thumb on that ever since opening day as we get deeper and deeper. So don't go anywhere. We still have plenty to talk. Anthony Scott from Breaks and Takes is in with us, but the usual crew is back in action. Brett, Steve, Jimmy, Aaron, the gang's all here. So don't go anywhere. We'll continue with the Game Day Huddle live from the Go Live Vegas studio on the other side.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
Come on down to the good old bar. Craft beer's never too far. I do every night. Do what through and get it right. Raise the glass, raise the you hat. The food, friends are near. Dance around, let them play. Voodoo ball's a place to stay.
Vegas Studios, a unique multi-camera social media virtual content creators paradise. We offer high-end services using live streaming and film production for your personal or corporate, commercial or event and campaign needs. Pre-record or live stream to your audience on multiple social media platforms simultaneously. Fun and interactive with social media comments, phone lines, live remotes, audio Foley sounds, and Snapchat filters. Be creative, get recognized, and make money. We help you by providing an all in-house production team. Visit our website at golive.vegas.
Guys like that were just good enough, and they had to make a decision. So.
You know, you gotta love it. I'm gonna step
ahead.
on you real
Do
quick.
it.
You
Lead
gotta
us in.
love it. You could tell the guy that doesn't do the podcast on a regular basis because he's as animated and all into the break as he is on the
We're
podcast.
always on air.
And,
We're always on air.
and so I mean, Anthony.
I don't have an off switch. I'm
Anthony
sorry.
went during that break, and you guys are welcome. You got the rest of it. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Brett Lawson.
Yes, off and running again, or continuing with the Game Day Huddle. Yeah, where was that the first segment, Aaron? No, but again, we're back in action. We missed you last week, but it's so happy to be back in action in the Go Live Vegas studio here for the Game Day Huddle, and I love it. We don't have an off switch either. That's what the fun part is. Hell, there's times where we're 30 minutes after the show goes on air, and we're still or off air, and we're still talking about the same thing. Yeah. Again, so I don't know if you heard that. The mics picked that up, but Aaron definitely knows what we're talking about. In fact, Aaron, we got to get Aaron a mic. One of the mics that we brought or took off the set here that may have been dropped on the table earlier in that first segment. We need to get that hooked up so Aaron could have a voice in the show as well. So in the advent we do talk about hockey, he could contribute. And speaking of hockey, we're going to get into that here now because again, Stanley Cup playoffs, NBA postseason, so much to talk about. But Jimmy, you were there in T-Mobile last night. You said the atmosphere was incredible. The energy was great. What were you feeling? Because I mean, we're a Go Live Vegas is in the brand name. We do our show out of Vegas, but we're not a local show. We cover it all, but we can't ignore what the Knights are doing in our own backyard. What were your takeaways from how they looked yesterday against Minnesota?
Yeah, they've been great all year. They've had a good team effort from everybody. We do have, in my opinion, the second best player in hockey right now with Jack Eichel out there. He's just so incredible to watch. When he gets the puck on his stick, he just glides. He's effortless out there. It's him and Connor McDavid. These guys, when they get the puck, it's just unbelievable to watch them just see what they're doing with it. Even if they don't score goals and they don't get assists, just watch them out there, and you could tell they know the game better than anyone else. Last night, the atmosphere was incredible. So much fun. It was sold out like it always is for every Vegas Knights game. We won the game 4-2 on a late goal. It was a late goal. I'm saying it's 0.1 on the clock, that empty netter that they put in. So it was actually a closer game than the score led it on to be. But we'll see what happens with this Knights team. They're an all-around good team. They're not. Do I think they have enough to win the Cup to go through like a Colorado or go through an Edmonton or even on the other side? There's the Florida Panthers and Calgary's good, and there's, or I mean not Calgary. Who's a Canadian team on the other side? Vancouver. So there's a couple teams on that other side that are going to be decent, tough outs. I do think it comes out of either Colorado or the Knights. Those are my two picks.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because last night, even in the aftermath of WrestleMania, when we were watching the game at the bar we were at with me and my buddies, we were having that conversation. Like, I don't know if it's a team that wins the whole thing, that hoists the cup, but it's a team that I feel can be back in the mix just like 2 years ago competing for it, right? And it's because, again, we saw them how they were matched up 2 years ago. They were the superior team, but what made it so unique is that they out-physicaled the physical team. That Florida team that was so aggressive and intense and would just punch you in the mouth, they were the bullies, right? They were the ones punching them in the mouth, and then we saw Florida bounce back last year. Knights come back down to earth, but in terms of the talent, the productivity, this roster is still really, really good, Steve. It does seem like a team that will be in the conversation in June one way or the other. I don't know if they will be because it's hockey. They have the makings of it on paper, though.
Well, so if you go back and you look at these teams that have won cups, the teams, especially in today's game, because today's game is so less physical,
yes,
right? Yeah. So because of it, it's like, where does that physicality come in? The Knights play very good shot defense.
Yes.
Their guys are not afraid to get in front of the puck, and if a guy gets dinged up, they have a little bit of depth to have the next guy up. That's where they're going to benefit. Whereas, like, look, that's one of my knocks on Edmonton. Nobody there wants to stop shots outside of Kane, right? Yeah. Nobody wants to get in front of a puck. You have teams like that. That's why when you were mentioning Calgary, why Calgary was the team they were during the season this year was because they were stopping pucks. The problem was they were doing it too much, and guys were getting hurt and, all of these things. So having guys like that really bodes well in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see this team take a deep run just because of the fact that they're going to play a little bit better defense than some of the other teams. Your conversation on Eichel, I think this is really interesting because you're saying it as though we forget that he was a top pick, that he was touted as the next poster boy, that he was the guy, right? And you're saying it from a standpoint that we're kind of surprised, but we're surprised because in Buffalo he got hurt. And he came to us. Remember, when he came to the Knights, he was still injured.
Yeah,
they made a deal for him.
We didn't actually see him in a uniform for a while.
Right.
And a lot of the conversation with Sabre fans, if you remember with him coming over, a lot of people, even as talented as he was, they're all like, yeah, but he hasn't really panned out the way he should. We got to see the full end of it and him actually kind of materialize into the elite player that we all knew him to be, but now he's got the hardware as well.
But the back end of last season is where you saw a big run at that.
Yeah.
And if we know anything, and I'm gonna throw it to football because it's always easy to follow this, right?
That's the analogy.
Joe Burrow's first 4 games last year were garbage.
Yeah.
He was coming off an injury. He was getting himself. He still wasn't quite 100% healthy. And I was over here. Look, I was wrong. I was over here saying, you know what? This dude probably is injured so bad that's why these receivers went out and all this stuff. I said that.
Yeah.
I have no problem owning it. But I will tell you this. It takes time once you come back from an injury like that to be able to then get everything moving in the same level that you were, right?
Even the great
It's a reason why the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani right now could go out and throw 5 innings, but they're baiting him back for a reason. And that's because they want him to be at his top performance level when he's ready to go, not 3/4 of the way at that performance level.
And then Michael Lugo says minimal conference finals for the Knights, nothing less. I mean, I get it. It's a fair expectation. They are that good. And you bring up a great point. I mean, it's a simple example and it's an easy example. Tom Brady, we saw how much he struggled off of his ACL. He got hurt in the beginning of 2008, had the whole year, had the whole offseason, and still didn't have a great 2009. And then finally returned to form in 2010 when he won the MVP. And I know that seems like an obscure reference and it's going back a ways, but when even the greatest of all time has trouble, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, after that Achilles injury, even at times when he actually, believe it or not, played well this year, it still wasn't enough to get in our minds that he is the same player that he once was. A lot of that's because he's in a Jet uniform in the Woody Johnson, type of scenario. But at the same time, you could physically see he can't move the same way.
Look at the contract Kirk Cousins got from the Falcons.
Yeah.
That contract was given to him because he was able to finally get himself back and show he was healthy and play. And that's why he was able to get it. So for me, with Eichel, I'm not surprised. I'm actually sitting here going, we're finally getting what I expected to be here. What we ponied up for.
Yep.
Right.
And we saw 2 years ago when they won, it was him able to facilitate and to dish that puck. His assists were the difference.
Yeah,
as much as we love Mark Stone, as much as we love how good some of these other guys played, Aiden Hill and everyone in between, they were heroes. They were tremendous, right? Barbashev, everybody. But it was Eichel.
He gets that wrister off now, though.
Yeah.
See, that's the difference in his game this year.
He's putting it in the post.
Is that he's getting the wrister off this year, not having to load up all. That is a big difference in his game, and that's because his legs are underneath him now. He's healthy. He's able to. He's stronger. He's in shape and all of that stuff. And that is why you see guys do this, which is also great in the card market. Because if you look for opportunities on guys like this that have been hurt and then are coming back and doing these things, whatever, those are opportunities to buy because the card market never sees an injury like they do a PED thing or something like that.
Controversy.
They actually will come back and support that guy once he's back healthy and on the field and all this stuff and everything. Like, don't be surprised if Tua Tagovailoa has an incredible year this year.
Well, yeah.
Don't be surprised.
And
I'm just saying because now he's had enough time to get healthy again.
And then you have the appeal with the cars because everyone loves a human interest story. Everyone loves a comeback story. It's a big reason why Burrow sold so dramatically well this year, as you guys have mentioned. But, Anthony, I want to ask you this, bringing you into the conversation here. What do you expect to see from those card markets as we get to the Stanley Cup playoffs? Because instead of the NFL or, even amateur sports like the tournament and the college football playoff where everything is so accelerated and it's like, you blink and you miss it, you snap your fingers, you're at the Super Bowl. It's very much a marathon, right? Both the NBA and the NHL. Focusing on the Stanley Cup, what are you looking for in the card markets right now? Or is it more about big name value, like the top guys, right? Because obviously you could go on and on about the Connor McDavids and the Jack Eichels. Are you going for someone like a little more undersold? Are you going for a goaltender who often prove to be the heroes in these type of scenarios? What are you looking at, whether it be on the Chicago front or just abroad?
What I see as far as we don't do a lot of hockey, but what I'm seeing out there, because it's a very in the card trading space, it's a very niche market. But I know the collectors in hockey are a little bit different, I think, than football and baseball, respectively. The fact that I think they're more they're collecting their guys and their teams.
Yeah,
I see a lot more guys looking for the players they're specifically looking for.
Right.
Don't have a lot of guys coming around going, well, I'm looking for these guys because I know they're going to be in the playoffs and I can quick flip them.
Right.
You got guys that are really loyal. I know Chicago, they're looking for Bedard even after his prices have tanked and gone down.
Great time to buy now, though.
They're 100% Chicago in either way, right?
Yeah.
That's what I noticed with hockey fans that buy cards versus guys that are buying football. And
he's 100% right.
And elaborate, by all means.
100% right as far as a hockey fan goes.
Right.
They will buy their players to the end. They do not care.
They tend to be diehard niche, like Anthony said, fans.
Most of these fans are born and raised in these cities, been bred up through loving the Blackhawks, loving the Knights, loving the Edmonton Oilers or the Vancouver whoever.
Yeah.
Canucks, whoever.
Aaron, I love it. No, literally, that's a perfect example. Aaron doesn't follow pretty much 95% of the stuff we talk about on the show. While we're talking shop, he is completely lost. Yet when we talk hockey, he is on the side, even correcting us. But that's my point. You literally, what you just said, there are people who don't even give a rat's ass about other sports, but hockey, if they're deeply rooted in the culture, in the sport, they will like it for life. And you have someone like Aaron who doesn't follow American sports casually, but he follows hockey and he knows who's in the playoffs, where he could be a co-host of this show just because now we're talking hockey. So I love the fact you bring that up.
The names of the 51st state team.
Oh, okay.
That is true. I don't. We're getting political here.
Yes, I was saying, Jimmy, you can take the mic for that one. But no, and it's an interesting point, and I actually want to bring that up before we get to basketball when talking about niche sports. And I want to hear from all you guys since you are directly, following this type of thing. We saw it with Rory McIlroy, right? Finally winning the green jacket. We saw Alexander Volkanovski in MMA and the UFC come back to win the featherweight title. And just this past weekend, we were in attendance for it. John Cena won his 17th title. Yeah, it's predetermined, but it happened. It's an accolade, and it was a historic moment. I have to ask you, all of the sports or, entertainment brands, if you will, that I mentioned, fall into the niche category. What is it like for a niche market in the cards that doesn't necessarily, pop off or jump off the page to someone who doesn't follow it, but for someone who does, how big is that when someone accomplishes something monumental? In other words, a lot of people aren't collecting golf cards, but for the people who do, how big is it when Rory does something historic? Or how big is it for the people who collect MMA cards when Volkanovski, or WWE cards, when John Cena come back to win another title in historic fashion? What does that do? Because there has to be some type of pop-off there.
So there is. Definitely when somebody comes back and does something like they did over the last couple of weeks,
monumental feat.
yes, you're going to see a quick tick up of 15 to 20% on all of that stuff. With wrestling, these guys are fanatics.
Yeah.
You look at WrestleMania, they put 60,000 plus into Allegiant Stadium this last weekend.
Yeah.
Everybody
knows.
knows.
Too. It was about 120 combined.
So
yeah.
you're talking, this is probably one of the biggest sporting events, but we know who's going to be the winner. And guess what? They still show up. They still buy the cards. Anthony did a break we were talking about before the start of it, over a $20,000 break that broke on Friday. So people are willing to invest in entertainment cards. The UFC, it's not entertainment. Nobody knows the outcome.
Right.
It popped off in about 2020, and then it's down, and it hasn't recovered yet.
Do you think a lot of that's because of the lack of Conor McGregor in recent years?
It's lack of like bringing the new eyes to the sport.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, in the last 2 years, there's no new eyes.
Because that's a good point. Because Volkanovski, if you're an MMA fan, you obsess over him, you love him. He's probably one of your all-time favorites because he's that likable of a guy and that great of a fighter. But if you're not a casual MMA fan, you may not know who Alexander Volkanovski is.
And he was an incredible fight.
Exactly.
I can just ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
Who's the villain in UFC right now?
Right now, there is none.
There's none.
Colby Covington is, I mean, he was literally...
There's your answer.
He was at WrestleMania last night, and at this point, no one even cares about him.
That's your answer.
Yeah.
You don't have the Chael Sonnens, the Conor McGregors, the guys that were the talk pieces. Look, Israel Adesanya is maybe the closest to that.
And he's
only
loved
a
by
villain
everybody.
because
And
he's so good.
And he's in the back end
Right?
of his career at this
That's
point.
why. He's a villain because he's so good.
Because he's hard to beat.
Right?
And he just
we
lost,
saw
so that
with Ronda
mystique is
Rousey,
kind of-
right?
Yeah.
Ronda Rousey became such a monster towards the end of her career because she was polarizing to people, and that's why. You don't have that right now.
What built the sport is...
Look at Mayweather with boxing.
Yes, what built the UFC sport was with Tito Ortiz.
100%.
The reason why everybody tuned in, because you wanted to watch Tito Ortiz lose.
You wanted to see Chuck Liddell take his head off.
Right, but
100%.
every time that he won a fight, it was better for the UFC. If you don't have that, you don't have that new guy coming in there where everybody hates and everybody wants him to lose. You're just bringing in Russian after Russian after Russian.
It doesn't matter.
No one cares.
In the fight game and even in the scripted fight game like pro wrestling, the villain sells everything. Because I've said this a long time, going back to when I was hosting college radio talk radio shows at the local campus station. I've had a theory. There aren't really any heroes in sports. There are guys who you root for against the villains, because the villains always piss you off in sports more than the heroes make you feel good, especially when it comes to a one-on-one type of endeavor like boxing, MMA, or WWE, whether it's predetermined or not. You root against, like, look, we're replaying WrestleMania right now.
I was just thinking that.
Anthony could vouch for it. More people, and people love AJ Styles, more people were probably last night rooting against Logan Paul than they were rooting for AJ Styles. John Cena came into the match as a heel. More people are rooting for
He's a heel?
And John Cena. Oh, you didn't know?
No, I don't.
Caught the New Age
What?
Alice.
All right,
Oh,
well,
that
let's set it up for him.
Yeah.
Okay. So, The Rock turned Cena into his pony boy.
and
Okay.
then refused to even show up. Basically, The Rock, Cena was in cahoots with The Rock. He wins the #1 contender spot at the Elimination Chamber. He low blows Cody Rhodes after The Rock does a little throat slash. Basically, he gives him the green light to go bad. And then The Rock doesn't appear again until, through last night. So basically,
So The Rock wasn't there last night?
It's,
No.
it's basically unexplained
Let's talk
why
about
he ever
this for a
turned
minute.
heel. Yeah,
so
by all
first off, Anthony picked this up for me.
Yeah.
Hey.
If you smell.
I love that.
So they were selling the Final Boss merch at WrestleMania for a guy who wasn't showing up.
Yes.
Now let's talk about how crappy that is, right?
Is that why everybody was pissed? Because all I seen on my
yes,
timeline
yes.
was
And they are
crappy.
pissed
Where's The
off.
Rock?
The
What's
main
this?
event, everyone was bummed about the main event in terms of the match itself,
Yes.
the outcome, and the fact that they never paid off The Rock giving Cena the green
there's
light.
all these different like stories. The Paul Heyman flip, right?
Yep.
And then they're talking about Paul Heyman. Like you see all these storylines. Paul Heyman's now that they're saying he must be the guy that actually The Rock is behind,
Right.
And they're actually getting the like a whole new bloodline
Like a
together,
faction,
right?
a
A whole
new
new faction
villain
together,
faction,
right?
yeah.
Doing a whole thing, right? This whole like concept, and him not being there was really glaring on this production of this. So WrestleMania was great until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's what this is going to be known as, is it was such a great WrestleMania until it was.
Yeah.
That's why I was saying.
It started with a bang and ended with a whimper.
On Raw tonight, if you are to see something come out, because even if you notice, and Anthony asked me this, he's like, I don't understand why they didn't do a bigger like exit for John Cena.
Yeah.
I said, it's simple. That was the John Elway walk off into the sunset.
Yeah, and then Lugo says right here, Mania was pointless, so much missed potential, because they did. They botched what this could have been. Because it's not his last match, but it's his last Mania match, and it's the 17th world title. We have talked on and on about Ric Flair for decades having 16. Now someone else is the top dog in that aspect, and it's like you feel like we're not even that excited about it.
You're not, and it's because that storyline feels very unfinished. And in the world of wrestling, they want a storyline to finish and the door to open on
another one.
Right?
Yep.
And you had it in a couple of the women's matches, right? You got a couple of the women's matches that like gave some opportunity to the women's side to like really do well. You talked about the, Becky Lynch being back in that three-way, that tag team match, right? And her being back in there, and then the three-way match that was done. Like those were all really like good matches.
Phenomenal.
And Anthony argued that the three-way match with the women might have been the best match of the night.
100%. That's
right?
what I mean. It started with a bang and ended with a whimper. And even Stone Cold, as Lugo points out in the comments, coming out on the ATV to call the attendance count, that was more exciting than the main event. But even then, you could tell as much as the crowd popped for him, we were hoping that he would pop up in the main event itself to counter The Rock.
Could you have imagined if that was the case, that Rock comes out,
And then
does
you hear the
something,
glass
Cena
shatter.
wins,
Yep.
but then Cena's mad at him because he's never cheated like that. That's how it should have gone.
Yeah.
Cena gets mad at him because he doesn't cheat to win like that, right? So then he did, Rock holds him down, Rock hits him with a chair, whatever it is, right? And then Stone Cold comes out and then just starts this whole thing. But then instead of Stone Cold and The Rock putting hands on each other, someone shows up to back up Stone Cold.
Right.
And then when
I
that
got
happens,
friends, too.
now you realize that Stone Cold and The Rock are both building what would be. And then that would be a crazy storyline. And maybe it's even that someone that comes out, maybe it's like one of the Rhodes brothers or something like that that comes out to,
And
you know what I mean?
Does it almost smell like when the NWO was being formed kind of back behind scenes?
In a way,
And they're building something up.
Yeah.
Right, and you have to wonder, because even you mentioned Raw tonight, the Monday Night Raw ratings and the fallout of WrestleMania are always huge. It's an event within itself, but that's what everyone's going to be wondering compared to last year, where it was this emotional moment where you have the storyline culminate a year later. That Cody Rhodes, no one even cared about. It was as if he was like some mid-card guy as opposed to the face of the company, because everyone was invested with Cena, but everyone thought that Cena blow-off would again have something to do with The Rock. And one of us comics says Stone Cold ran with the guardrail. That was awesome. He put the ATV right into the barricade with his ATV, his peak attitude era, and it really was. That was probably the highlight of the evening. And as Lugo says one more time, I don't even watch wrestling, but I agree with everything that didn't happen last night, because again, you don't have to follow it. Even Jimmy, you were putting the pieces together just a few minutes ago, and even you were all like, well, that doesn't make sense logically.
Because it doesn't.
Sometimes you want to flip things on their head in wrestling, and you want to subvert the expectations. A lot of times that works, but wrestling fans, since it's something predetermined, much like if you're watching a TV show or a movie, you go off the logic. In sports, you throw the logic out the window because it's a competition.
You never know.
If someone's getting knocked out, the logic don't matter, right? Everyone has a game plan until they get punched in the mouth. But in sports like this, or entertainment events that is essentially fictional, you want to apply the logic because you like to think the people writing this stuff
what's the next
aren't
big event?
approaching the same mentality. That's the next big event.
Yeah.
They'll have some smaller pay-per-views in between.
Okay.
And they've really branched out in terms of their international coverage. They have events everywhere around the world now. And I mean, they're as big as they've ever been before. The roster's as talented as they've ever been.
You cannot deny what the WWE brings to the country.
And that's
the amount of people, the amount of money that brings in just into our city alone for this last weekend. You saw it. There was activations at every casino. There was downtown, up and down the strip. Everybody had something going on. They bring fans and they bring money wherever they go.
And that's what I want to ask you about, Anthony. Is it coming in for the event, but also following the car markets themselves, kind of going back to the original question about the niche markets? How big was an event like this where you have John Cena, you have CM Punk, you have Seth Rollins, you have Roman Reigns? Aside from the booking aspects, do you think this is the type of weekend? Because obviously Mania is always going to be a big deal, but with the names involved in this, Randy Orton, right, against someone who to be determined opponent since Kevin Owens pulls out, AJ Styles, you have a lot of like legendary generational talent. Do you see big weekends, more casuals who know these guys' names, who may not know some of the newer guys, fire on some of these cards?
So I'm just getting back into wrestling. I was really big back in the day when like Stone Cold.
Okay.
and
Us
all
too,
them,
yeah,
right?
all of us,
So,
yeah.
like,
Right.
But I have a great crew of guys that work
Yeah.
for us that do nothing pretty much but wrestling, right?
Yeah.
That's like the main thing that they break. So like all weekend, I'm getting filled in on all the dirt, basically.
Oh, awesome.
And it's like watching them talk was like its own podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they filled me in on more knowledge of the last 4 years in like 4 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? But my question is what happens now to Roman Reigns, who's Roman alone?
Right.
That's you know, like
And
I've never watched the guy wrestle before, right? And I'm not gonna sit there like I know anything about him, but like they filled me in on the storyline
And how dominant
and
he
I'm
was.
watching this going down, and I'm like, well, hell, now I got to watch wrestling again because I want to know what the hell happens.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool that we're in a time and place as we kind of start to wrap things up here. We'll focus on NBA to officially put a bow on it. But it's kind of cool we're at that place in time. A lot of it's because it's in Vegas. It's in our own backyard. But it's cool that we're at that place in time where we could have those conversations because wrestling is considered cool again. And you have people who may not follow Monday Night Raw or Friday Night SmackDown on a weekly basis, but they will still watch events like this, like Michael Lugo and some of the other One of Us comics is chiming in. Like, we have a lot of people who are talking about Mania the Monday after, who in years past may not have talked about WrestleMania. You hear Roman Reigns' theme playing right now. You heard John Cena's theme playing earlier.
You know,
we thank you, Aaron.
I'll tell you, I think that, you know, what WWE has done, and in our day and age, they've been able to tap into the social side of this.
Yes.
Right? And they're one of the few sports that has. I wish baseball could figure it out.
They
right?
struggle to do
If
even
baseball could just
anything close.
figure it out, it'd be incredible, right? Get some storylines. I want Bryce Harper talking crap to the reliever on the Marlins.
I want Soto
Right?
and Aaron Judge in the same city,
Right.
jawing back and
Right, I
forth.
want that.
Yeah.
Maybe they should ask Savannah Bananas.
Yeah, yeah.
No
yeah.
lie.
Yeah, well,
I mean,
no
no
lie.
lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's no joke, because that's, you know, again, we've brought it up multiple times. But when you talk about like this Roman Reigns thing, for example, this is such a great reset to something they've had so much success with, that now people that hated Roman Reigns because of his success now are like, oh, I want to champion this guy because he was successful before, and I want to see if he can do it again. Right?
Yep.
So they're able to set these things up, whereas like Major League Baseball, they could be taking a guy. Look, I mean, Michael Conforto is a really good example.
Yeah.
He's on a team that's winning. Then no one outside of, name 3 Giants. Go. I'll wait.
Shit. Brendan Allen, get in the car.
I'll wait, right?
Look who it is. How perfect.
What I'm
How
saying
perfect.
is,
Yeah.
that is so funny.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that these guys right here, when you're talking about a team like that, Major League Baseball doesn't have
No.
a team
There's no villain.
that they can do that. So
The
you-
Dodgers
you
may
take-
be the villain by default just because
Right.
they're so stacked.
But who
that's
don't
it.
you like in-
They're likable.
in
They're
Major
all
League Baseball?
No, they're all likable on the Dodgers.
And the guys that
Yeah.
you like, if you think about when Josh Hamilton was like dominating,
yeah.
and how many people hated him,
Couldn't stand them.
right?
Yes.
And that was great for baseball.
You guys are so right about we need these villains in every single
It's
sport.
more
gotta have
important.
it.
Than
You
it's
have
more,
to
it's
have
more
it.
important than a hero.
So I made a little
It is.
joke to my guy over here about taking his Yankees cap
Oh
off.
boy.
Of course.
Never.
But it's because growing up, they had the players that you could hate.
Yep.
Yep.
Yes.
They don't have that anymore. Like they have
I
a
didn't
likable
even- I
team.
didn't know
Yeah.
Josh was right, and I hated
Reggie
Jorge
Jackson.
Like
Posada.
I like J Dom. Like they have a great
I hated
likable
Posada.
team.
Right.
I hated Posada.
A lot of people hated Posada. A lot of people hated Clemens. A lot of people hated
Right.
Pettit. And going back even further, a lot of people hated Reggie Jackson and so on and so forth.
It's like if Andy Pettit hit one or more of my guys,
Swear to
I was
God.
gonna run out of my stand and through my TV.
and if you go on social media, Boston Red Sox fans are saying good things about Aaron Judge.
Right.
Like, everyone
And
loves him.
real quick, I just want to answer Brendan
Yeah,
really
go ahead.
quick. I'm going to go Wilson, Posey. Hold on. Wilson, Posey.
Lincecum.
Lincecum's fine, but
Yeah.
I
That's an
didn't-
easy
I wasn't
one.
going to go with Lincecum.
That's
I
an
was trying
easy
to go
one.
a little tougher Crawford.
Okay. Until they could. I mean,
Aha.
but I mean that's what's I mean, what was the most stacked team? Was it 2014 was probably the most stacked team of the 3 that won in 2010,
Yeah, I mean,
2012,
that was the one that had the
2014?
most recognizable names,
Right.
but also because they had won World Series and then won again.
So the brand
it
was
was more
stronger. No,
relevant
you're right.
then.
You're
But
right.
when you're
Yeah.
talking about guys that bring and create relevance to a sport, a team, a city, like whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Like you need guys that kind of push the envelope a little
Always.
bit to be relevant,
Always.
right? And it's like, look,
Look at
Minnesota
what Tiger
Twins.
Woods did for golf.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah.
Minnesota Twins are a great team generally,
Yeah.
right? They're generally a great team. There's nobody on there you can dislike.
And Anthony, what were
But
you
how
saying?
about
Yeah.
how about
No,
the
I'm with you.
baby face to a heel? Roger Clemens going from Boston to the Yankees.
100%.
Right.
I used to
Johnny Damon.
I was a
Remember
Roger
Johnny
Clemens
Damon's
fans
move there?
until that happened.
Kevin Durant leaving OKC to go to Golden State, the
Right.
empire on the hill, and that wins the next 2 titles with them.
LeBron.
No,
Not
bingo.
1, not 2, not 3.
Bringing in basketball because that's where we're in this.
Absolutely. Right, absolutely.
You have to have those guys that everybody hates. Either you love LeBron
Yeah.
or you absolutely hate LeBron.
Yeah.
Either you love Kevin Durant or you absolutely hate Kevin
Correct.
Durant. You have to have that in sports, and right now we're missing it in the UFC. We're kind of missing it in football too. We need somebody to come out and for everybody to hate now that the Chiefs are kind of moving out of the
What
way.
you need is Patrick Mahomes to come out
And go villain mode.
and basically say something.
Bring on the world.
to everybody.
To
which
Josh
is,
Allen or somebody.
Like it's
Yeah.
simple. Yeah, guys, don't get comfortable. I'm not
I'm
done.
coming back.
That's all you'd have to say.
I'm
don't
back
get
with-
comfortable. I'm not done. Mic drop.
Yeah.
And Patrick Mahomes is the biggest talked about thing for 6 months in football.
And that's why part of the reason why we like Joe Burrow, because he has that edge. He
Kansas
has
City
a,
Chiefs PR work.
Right,
Right
yeah,
here.
he's all like, talk to Steve. He'll get you ready for 2025. But even Joe Burrow, he has an edge. Like we like guys like Joe Namath going back to the Super Bowl. We like guys who do that. We say we
Yeah,
don't.
but see, Joe
we
Namath.
act like we
Joe
don't.
Namath was a villain.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow plays the victim card. He's the victim card. No one ever liked me. No one
Oh, no,
ever
definitely.
believed me. No
It's-
one thinks that I can.
Oh,
like
it's-
he's the underdog
It's like
story,
they're-
not the villain.
It's like no, exactly. But there's certain guys who play the underdog card. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like, oh, you
Right.
never. No one ever believed in me. No one ever thought I could make it. Yo, if you watch Joe Burrow at LSU,
You're a Heisman Trophy winner. Stop it.
You had the greatest
Yeah.
season in the
Right.
history of college football. We knew you were going to be good.
or we need you to be so squeaky clean
Yeah.
like Tebow.
Exactly.
Right?
But that's definitely
The
true.
other side of it.
Because sometimes, Steve, you get a guy who's a hero who doesn't seem authentic, and we could see right through it, and we're all like, yo, stop being fake. Be the real you. We want to see the candid version.
Let's simplify this and just make this
Yeah.
incredibly easy for everyone to follow.
Yeah.
The biggest topic in the NFL for 2 years was Taylor Swift, and she's an entertainer. Mic drop, over.
Well, it's so funny because Aaron literally brought that up in the comments. Is wrestling considered a sport? No, it's not. And them being considered a sport is how they're able to get away with so much they are, both in terms of the local aspect and on television. But they're entertainment first, and every sport we watch, every sport we discuss
And
in this
so are the
show
Savannah Bananas.
is entertainment first.
Yep.
The Harlem Globetrotters, Savannah Bananas, everyone wants to, kind of look at them.
That's why it's called sports entertainment.
Right, you kind of look at them from an inferior approach until you realize how they handle the entertainment brand, and you realize if some other teams, the good teams, the teams that are legitimate, the pro teams with the top-notch stars and faces in the league, if they could jump on board with that, it would pay dividends because at the end of the day, people are watching to be entertained, and wrestling embodies that completely. Really quick, just because we're going on with this niche conversation before we really wrap things up, I know I keep saying that, but we got a comment about Alexander Ovechkin in the comments. We mentioned it when he broke the record, Jimmy, a couple weeks ago, how likely his card market would boom because of that. And again, talking about Rory McIlroy, Volkanovski, John Cena, legends in a niche market who do something monumental. Are you still seeing the carryover from that historic day in Long Island when he beat Gretzky's record, or has Ovechkin cooled off a little bit?
No, he's continued to
Wow.
keep rising. As long as he keeps playing and keeps scoring goals, his cards will keep ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. He's not going to ever pass Gretzky type numbers, but he's going to be pretty damn close.
Okay, and then that answered the question completely because it's one of those things where Gretzky's the great one. He's solidified. No one's necessarily taking away from his legacy, but when you have someone like a John Cena, it doesn't diminish what Ric Flair did, but if you are now at 17 and Ric Flair's at 16, it's the same type of dynamic. Naturally, that's going to get a lot of a big push. Really quick, though, Jimmy, before we do go to basketball, I want to have Aaron throw up this card. This is the card I was mentioning that Michael Lugo got his hands on this past weekend or this past week. This is the Venusaur one right here.
Wow.
Yeah, because I know you on social media. You were displaying some of the Pokemon.
Absolutely.
Right, the slabs that you've had. So I just wanted to kind of get that in there to join the conversation. And again, like these are the type of things because like how niche is Pokemon from a card collector standpoint, right?
So
running with the theme of the show today.
2 years ago, nobody was buying Pokemon. 2 years ago, it was kind of like a dead hobby. You had your still guys that were dabbling in it, moving on. Now, 2 years later, it's hotter than sports. We get walking into our store, we get 8 to 2. And 10 people that walk in, 8 of them are for Pokemon, 2 are for sports.
Really?
And we've been strictly
So it's not even a niche anymore.
It's not even a niche anymore. We've been strictly a sports card company for almost 12 years before this. now over the last 2 years, Steve and I both, we're like, how can we get more Pokemon?
And
We're
then
trying to scour the world just to get more Pokemon in the stores.
And then Anthony, you mentioned how you have a whole team of guys just monitoring wrestling. Like, do you do something similar for Pokemon? Do you directly monitor the trends yourself? How does it work for you?
Since I do most of the traveling for the shows and
Right.
kind of see the trends, the last show I was at, I bought like 4 big Pokemon collections, and just because that's the case that seems to be turning the most.
It's because you like money, Anthony. If you like money,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to be buying Pokemon right
Your
now.
customers are asking you for
You
it.
have to have
You
it.
have to have it,
Well,
exactly.
and you have to remember that the shoe collector and buyer became a sports card collector and buyer, who became the Pokemon collector and buyer. And that guy is all about quick flip. That's what he's about. And that hobby has become quick flip. And I know, Michael, you were asking about, does being a villain boost the card value? It does to a certain extent. When you get a good villain, a Conor McGregor,
It would probably depend on
Conor
who's opposing
McGregor
him,
is
right?
one of the top hits in any UFC product that comes out right now.
Oh, 100%.
Still.
Conor McGregor, they announced a main event with Conor McGregor's name on it. It's the hottest UFC event of 2025.
He hasn't fought in 2
And he
years.
hasn't- over that.
Yeah.
Like 2021 was the last
Yeah.
time we saw him in the octagon.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. So, no, I'm with you. And the last time we saw him was with the broken leg. That's the last time he fought,
That's right.
let alone he
Poirier
won.
fight, yeah.
Exactly. So, no, it's so true. And Lugo also said in the comments, when they bought the original 151, I'm pretty sure the market boomed. I mean,
It did
that could
help.
be it.
I wouldn't say that was it.
Did it?
What they did is that Pokemon, so Wizards of the Coast, they realized that they needed to create chase component like sports cards did. And that's what they did.
So
So
it's
they put all the secret rares and stuff. And once the secret rares started coming out, and now they're all of a sudden there was these multiple level cards
So
in
they-
there. There's the versions of cards out there, like, we just looked at Venusaur, right?
Yeah.
There's in that set, there's like 7, 8, 9 different versions of Venusaur at different levels that can be pulled out.
Right.
That have different levels of rarity, including that one is the top rarity. So now there's a chase component to it. In sports cards, we're chasing the 1 of 1, the of 10s, the of 5s,
Yeah.
The autographs,
25s,
yeah.
the autographs, so on. So it's similar. What they're doing is creating a chase component without putting autographs in there by creating the different multiple levels, right? And we're seeing the sports card world flip on that because of the fact that guys are under deals where they're signing exclusive agreements and not signing cards. Like, for example, you have no Wembanyama autographs in Panini, right? So those type things. So that world is trending that way.
What everybody realized in the card market and collectible market from the late 80s to early 90s, when everything just went to shit, the reason why it all went to shit is because it was mass produced and there was no chases. There wasn't anything for people to. Every box was basically considered the same. Now you look at Pokemon, you look at sports cards, you look at even Hot Wheels are starting to do it. In the Hot Wheels stuff for Steve, they're putting these chases in the boxes. Even with collectible toys, they're putting the chases in there. I think that's what's missing from the comic books. I think they're going to be the next ones to start coming in limited edition.
Really?
Only 15,
Well, they
20.
started that this year, so
I
I'm glad you
told
brought that up.
I didn't know
because-
that, but I know they were
No,
coming.
and I'm glad you brought that up because it's a really good educational component for people. So Whatnot, and I got to give them credit for this, did a deal with Marvel where they did the X-Men 97 exclusive covers. They put them in foil packs, 3 books per pack. And then in those packs, you could hit autographs from the artists. You could hit all of these different versions, and then there was exclusive low-numbered foils. Only 100, 200, whatever made, and those sold incredibly well. I mean, when we did ours, and our channel at the time only had like 900 followers or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. We were really realizing on the 3-pack, $130, $150 per pack on those 3 books because people have the chase component. So it's there.
It's huge.
So that chase component is absolutely
Gambling.
important.
It's gambling.
Yeah,
it is.
For every age.
on.
And,
It's odds.
and the thing
Yeah.
is that Pokemon's a family collectible.
Yep.
Pokemon is one of those ones that mom, dad, everybody could do.
Yes.
They've trended away from Funko Pops because of the overproduction of the general product that's being done by Funko
Funkos,
Pop.
yeah,
So
they're
they
everywhere.
moved into Pokemon. That
And it
Funko
takes up a
Pop
lot of
collector,
room.
who was a shoe collector, was the Pokemon collector. Or I mean the Funko Pop collector. Now the Pokemon collector is in there also, right? So they're in there as well. Which brings me to a shameless plug, which is the PokeCon LV that we'll be producing.
go.
That'll be coming up in September. You guys can get tickets now. It's at Ahern Convention Center. This is September, 19th and 20th. This will be at the Ahern here in Las Vegas off the corner of Sahara and Las Vegas Boulevard. Get your tickets now. It's $30 for a VIP ticket. Michael Barnard, who's a Garbage Pail Kid artist, you see a ton of his art right here. He's creating an exclusive card for the VIP package that'll only be available in the VIP package for you to be able to get.
Right.
$30 that gets you your entrance both days of the show, early entries, all of those perks. We'll have all kinds of great stuff that are being added. In fact, we just announced this weekend that Gross Card Con will be part of the concept. We'll be bringing some of the original and current Garbage Pail Kid artists that will have their own section of the show to be able to come see those guys as well. And then we've announced now that Michelle Knotts and Jay Godey will be in the mix, right? And Michelle's got multiple credits, including Team Rocket, which is as hot as it's going to be right now, because the Team Rocket
ready to
set
come out, yeah.
comes out in less than a month, right? She's going to be there. The voice of Mewtwo is going to be there. And on top of it, we're going to have really great activations. We're going to have a bunch of different games that you're going to be able to play. You'll be able to win cool prizes from companies like Gameday, from some of the other partners and sponsors that are involved. So you guys are going to be able to come out and do this. And again, this is a really family fun event, centrally located, easy to get to here in Las Vegas. Great venue for this. You guys will have a lot of fun with it. So make sure, get your tickets to PokeCon, available now. And if you're a vendor and you're interested in vendor tables, 8-foot tables start at $250, and that includes a lunch each day. You get a box lunch delivered to your table as part of the concept.
Let's go.
I think they also learned from the Ultimate Teams and My Team game modes for Madden and 2K in creating better chase and value, color, and rarity. Michael Lugo. I'm going to take this a step further, and I'm going to say that Epic Games is probably the one that's really encouraged a ton of this, because Epic Games did something that no one else was doing. They got you to pay them money for things that benefited you for nothing in the game, cosmetics, and that was it. And I think a lot of companies that are in this space are starting to realize, hey, we can do things like, add a component, a card set that completely unrelated to everything else, put it out there, put these rare versions in there, and be able to get versions. So when you look at all of these different things that can be done, you really have to look at the full scope of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And to see where people ended up.
And we like these type of, this is what we've been really waiting for the show. We want the consumer, the buyer, to directly talk with you guys, with Anthony, with Jimmy, with Steve, anyone else we have joining us on the show, visiting in studio, who not only works in the hobby, but is an industry professional like these guys. So these are the questions we want. Really quick before we wrap things up, one more question from Michael. That's why the card I got, going back to what you were talking about with that the slab, that's why the card you got is so big. It's full art card for more value, and it's the aesthetic aspect that you guys talk about with sports, but ultimately with someone like a novice like me, it's going to go back to what you're watching on the field, the statistical performance, how good of a player they are. Pokemon with fictional characters, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, Venusaur doesn't tear an ACL.
Right, exactly. Venusaur
doesn't beat his wife.
Or have a 3-point, I was going to say, or have a 3-point shooting percentage, but that's probably the best way to phrase it. But no doubt about it. And that's what makes this so interesting. And we're going to continue to cover this type of stuff on the show moving forward. That's why guests like Anthony and anyone else we could get in to also share their insights is so appreciated and very much needed. Again, Lugo just texted me. This is the exact type of content he needs. But we could go on and on. We've gone long the past couple of weeks, so we got to wrap it up. But really quick, I only do this because I already teased it, so I want to make good on it. We'll go around the set really quick. NBA is upon us. We'll continue to dive deeper and deeper into the postseason outlook as we get into it. The play-in games now are in the rearview mirror. We have matchups set. You obviously have intriguing matchups like Golden State and Houston and so on and so forth. But just generally, Jimmy, what's the one thing? Because, again, we talked about it. We just mentioned it with Anthony how it is for so many other sports compared to, the footballs where it's like a sprint. Basketball, the postseason, it's one of those that's like a marathon. What is the most important thing in the hobby to do to track these things throughout the playoffs into the big, because again, a lot of the NBA audience is casual. They don't get invested into the later aspects of the later rounds of the postseason. What's important for someone in the hobby to track this stuff from beginning to the finals themselves?
You're basically looking for the guys that are going to show up. And I bet them every single game. Last night I bet it, and I was 5 out of 6. I needed Tyler Hero. I was telling the guys for $10,000 last night. I like to bet the best players on that team to score the most points for that game. And I did it in March Madness. I did it in the NFL season. I do it now in the NBA season. Now that we're in the playoffs and these games actually matter. Yeah. Because during the regular season, none of those games matter to these guys.
Put an asterisk on it. Yeah.
A lot of the time they don't even show up. They only play half the game. Sometimes they sit out the whole game. So now that we're in the playoffs, they will play. They will play at the top of their ability. So bet the best players on the team to score the most points. That's what I'm going to
So
be
like
watching.
a Jaylen Brown last year. Obviously, he was a big name before, but to have that championship performance, and I think you've even mentioned, as a result, Jason Tatum got a rub from that, who didn't necessarily play dominantly, but was on the winning side, and because of that, the appeal focuses to him in the hobby.
It's always the guys that are going to score points.
Right.
So if your guy's going to be 25 to 30 points a game, you're going to get interest from the card market. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you play at, if you're a bench player or what. You go out there, score 20 to 30 points a game, you're going to get people to follow and buy your
Let me
card.
ask you this, Steve, and we'll finish with your thoughts, Anthony, in a second. But someone like a John Moran, a controversial player who, when it's all said and done, isn't going to be there, but is still making his presence known. We've talked about on the show, he continues to make his presence known both for bad and for good. How much does the bad impact the good? Because when he is on fire, he is as dangerous as anybody in the league, but he also is his own worst enemy for the things that don't have to do with his stat line.
Will he be playing the Warriors?
That's exactly.
Because that's the question. Because if you get them in the
Yeah.
playoffs playing the Warriors, then yes, you're going to have all this uptick in John Morant, all
Right.
this talk, because everybody's going to be on one side or the
So
other.
to counter that,
right?
you're going to see Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green and Steph Curry.
Right.
Obviously, you're going to get Steph Curry,
Right,
but
and it's
the
gonna be
Warriors are going
Steph,
to jump.
right?
Yeah.
And Steph. When it comes to these playoffs, I think what we're going to see, and what I want to see is, it didn't happen game one, and I think you'll see it on the 22nd, right? And that's going to be Luka taking over the Lakers.
Yeah.
And
We're
the
waiting for
and
it.
the passing of that baton.
We're waiting for it.
Because he didn't do it. You could tell he held back a little bit. He didn't quite, you could just tell.
Yeah.
You can tell when that guy turns it on.
100%.
Right? And it was not turned on in that game. And look, and Anthony Edwards looked every bit of what we talk Anthony Edwards to be, right?
Yep. And we will continue to
need
talk
Anthony
about that.
Edwards to keep talking to the media.
Yeah.
If we can get those two things.
Oh, he's great.
Then that'd be
I love
amazing.
him. I love him.
But, you're looking for that. And as Jimmy
Ant-Man.
talks, you're talking about the guys that make a presence, the guys that do it. When you're looking at this playoff set, I would say, look, there's still room in Luka's stuff, right? Because it had such a descent at one point, right? That fall that it had. So Luka's not bad right now. But guys like Anthony Edwards, if he goes out and has another night like this, he's been stagnant in the card market over the last 6 to 8 months.
Really?
He is going to boom. If they go and they win by 20 against the Lakers again, everybody's going to be going, pick that off eBay, pick that off of this,
And
buy this card.
But I love how you mentioned that because
Yeah.
we talked about. I've waxed poetic on this very set about Nikola Jokic being the best player in the world today. Even if you want to give the MVP to SGA, and both of these guys to my right and my left continue to remind me that Jokic isn't a big seller. So again, it's not necessarily the dominance. Ant-Man, he's as talented as anyone. We're wondering if he's the next LeBron, and even them, you just said 6 to 8 months stagnant. Only now can it pick back up. It seems like in NBA, timing is, like Anthony, more important than anything else, is it not?
Man, you said it. You guys said it earlier about the villain and the people who root against them.
That's
and
the theme of the show today. I love it.
So, the largest move I've seen in a long time, bigger than when Tatum won a championship or any of that. I don't think his cards moved as much as they should have after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Luka going to the Lakers? And I hate the Lakers. Everybody knows that. I'll
You love
talk
them or
crap,
hate them.
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah, it's like the
That's what
Yankees.
But I'm
Yankees
going
and
to tell
Cowboys.
you, it comes down to the baby face and the villain. And I think Edwards might end up being that villain that shuts down the baby face of the NBA now.
And
Yeah, so-
Aaron, go ahead and leave that question back up if you can. We'll answer that to wrap up the conversation. Go ahead, Jimmy.
So I watched that documentary. Have you guys seen that yet with the Team USA from when they were playing in
Yeah,
France yet?
yeah.
So I watched that documentary. The one thing that I took from that documentary over anything else is how good everybody said Anthony Edwards was.
Yes.
And he was on a team where he didn't even play. There was multiple games during the Olympics that he sat the bench and didn't get in any minutes.
Him and Tatum, those were the two that were all like, what the hell's
But-
the deal? But when you look at who was out there,
And then when you hear what those guys that were actually out there, that were actually, the Steph Currys, the Kevin Durant's, the LeBron, every single one of them said one thing: Anthony Edwards is the next guy. So if you listen to this podcast and you have any money in your bank account right now, you buy whatever Anthony Edwards rookie card you can find in a PSA 10, and I promise you, and if not, this is a money back guarantee. You send me the text message, I bought this card today for this price on eBay. If it doesn't sell for more than that in 2 years, I will pay you that. No.
So let's go ahead and bring it home. The question, one more from Michael Lugo, also running in line with the theme of the show today. How much does it matter for getting a player card for one team or the other in this playoff type of scenario? Example, Jimmy Butler. given his pet where he was in the past? Do you want a card for him on the Bulls, Heat, Golden State? It would have to depend on probably what the most memorable.
It's not even like that.
What would it be?
In sports, it's all about the team that you're on currently.
So
and
Golden
your
State,
rookie card. That's it.
Anything in between, they don't care.
Anything in the
Your
middle
team
doesn't matter.
Yes.
And the rookie card.
So even if his best run, like was with Miami, he's going to do some stuff with Steph. He's
got to have a jacket, right?
Yes.
For that to matter.
So basically, you're only looking at the very beginning or the current. You're only looking at the middle until he's calling it a career.
Rod Woodson is a
Steeler.
I rest my case.
Everybody only cares about
No,
where you
I get
started
it. I get
and
it.
where you're at
I
right
get it.
now.
I love
That's it.
Well, the reason why I love that is because that's what they do in the Hall of Fame. That's what they
Right.
do for baseball and football. It's the same exact thing.
Because they've done
Yes.
that, that's how it's coded to the collector, and that's how it is.
That's
so when the guy
great-
finds
great
those
question
bumps,
by Lugo.
which is why I gave you guys the rundown on Julio Jones last week that I
Yeah,
did.
because
he didn't have the performance level and elevate the people around him. The other stops in his career outside of the one place.
Yes.
But
But
that
you-
one place wasn't a big enough fan base to drive him for excitement. So to a casual fan, he was good.
But for maybe like for 5 years, as opposed to a whole career.
Right.
I got you.
So that's the thing.
It's variables. They're variables.
Right, it is.
Yeah.
Look at Emmitt Smith.
Right.
Right?
No one remembers the Phoenix Emmitt Smith.
No, but that's where he set all the records.
Right. Well, it's Dallas where he said all.
No,
well,
but
yeah, I get what you're saying.
you
though.
see what I'm saying?
He walked away and called it a career, yet no one remembers.
That's where
it.
he
Yeah.
set those records that he left
Right,
on the table.
right.
We're there. And, so
No, I
when
get
you
you.
look at players like this and you look at how these affect teams, it's all about the landing location.
So for someone like a Juan Soto, who's been such a big commodity, no
Mets
matter
was a
where
horrible thing for his hobby.
Right. So
The
where
Mets were the worst team for him. to
Okay,
get to.
so there you go. So basically, unless he were to win it big and retire a Met, we're remembering him as an
He
athlete.
should have went to Boston if he wanted to be the biggest talked about
But
thing in sports.
aside from that, let's say his career ends in the next couple of years. Unless he wins big with the Mets and finally brings them their first World Series since 1986, he retires. Even if he goes into Cooperstown as a card, we're thinking of him as a national. There you
Yeah,
go.
and
There
all
you
of
go.
his Yankee stuff
I love it.
is nothing right now. You could go out and buy every Juan Soto New York Yankee stuff for nothing.
That was a perfect question to end it on because even I didn't know that because it's easy to get it diluted. You think, oh, Jimmy Butler's a dominant Chicago Bull. He's a dominant player for the Heat. He backpacks the Heat to multiple, Eastern Conference Finals. But what have you done for me lately? Or where did you start when you came in the league, especially since rookie cards? When you go into your box in the the box in the attic or whatever, you have stuff stored away. It's usually the rookie cards that you're looking for if you break them out, even if you're not looking to get in the hobby and you're just doing it for sentimental value. So interesting stuff here from the two guys to my left and right as always, and including Anthony Scott from Breaks and Takes. Really quick, because I know you travel a lot. I know you're busy. There's still plenty of stuff in the sports world for you to gauge and keep on the radar. But what's the best way to follow you guys, Breaks and Takes, yourself individually, everything you do, your brand? Where can we find you?
You can pretty much find all our social media on breaksandtakes.com. You can follow me personally on Instagram, breaksandtakes_university.
Awesome. And then just because we do it anyway, Jimmy, you've given it a couple times, but for any new members of the audience, again, we're on Spotify, YouTube, all our social media platforms. You can find us in all of those places, and you can find Game Day Sports Cards.
Lake Mead in Buffalo, Commerce Downtown store, and then we have the Little Rock, Arkansas store, and tidbit, we might be opening another store here very, very soon.
Oh boy, it's growing. It's growing. And of course, you can find Game Day, the Game Day operation at One of Us Comics. And you can find One of Us Comics represented every week right here on the airwaves of Go Live Vegas. WTF is recorded today. It'll drop tomorrow, Steve, at least I assume.
Yep.
Anything we should be excited for? Because it seems like the show's getting more and more I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, more and more off the rails, and I mean that in the best way possible.
It is. No, and that's
Yeah.
what the beauty of that has become because it becomes chaos.
Right. And you love your
Paul
chaos.
Botto's back in town. He's supposed to be in studio,
Oh,
so
boy.
we should see Paul back.
Oh, boy.
We also have two special guests coming in today as well, and we'll be talking quite a bit about WrestleMania. Obviously, that's big in our world. We'll have discussions about that and more. Plus, you're going to get some more insight into some upcoming event stuff, including First Friday, Free Comic Book Day, and May the 4th be with you. So make sure you tune into that.
That's true. That's on the menu coming up quick. So much to be, so much to be involved with. God, we just need to sign off there. So much to be involved in, and follow along as we move along throughout the spring into the summer. The sports calendar will continue to pick up. And if it's not sports, it'll be professional wrestling. It'll be Pokemon. It'll be everything in between. We'll talk about it on this show. We'll talk about it on other shows. So again, like, subscribe, follow us on all of our platforms. We're on Spotify now. You can watch and listen there, as well as all our social media platforms on our YouTube page. So we thank you. We appreciate you. Big thanks to Anthony Scott for visiting us in the studio today. And we will catch you all next time right here when we do it again on the Game Day Huddle. Have a great rest of your week.